Aloha. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today. We just finished celebrating our birthday over at the Polynesian Cultural Center, and that had cake and ice cream. I don't know if you have cake and ice cream at this class, but it is good for a presentation. So let me just proceed with this assignment that I've been given. And I recognize a lot of you from work at the Polynesian Cultural Center. I'm delighted to see you here. First thing I wanted to point out was that I was asked in this talk that I would describe how I have become the leader that I am today. And secondly, that I'd share specific tips to the BYU Hawaii students in the audience about developing leadership skills. So I'm going to try and fill this assignment. I'd like you to know that I will drift from skills and experiences down to attributes and perhaps a sense of values that I think have been critical in my development and my responsibilities. And I hope that they'll be beneficial to you. So I want to share this first thing with you. It's been something that has resonated with me since I read it many, many years ago, and I'm sure that some of you are familiar with it. And I've entitled this chapter, this portion of my presentation under the title of Formative Years. First of all, let me read this. All I need to know, I learned in kindergarten. Share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody, live a balanced life, learn some and think some, and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. And never forget that warm cookies and ice cream are good for you. Now, I share this with you because obviously there are some leaders in the world, even leaders of nations, who haven't learned a lot of these lessons. They don't know how to play together. They certainly don't know how to say sorry. And so you can see the kind of issues that can develop simply by not following these common practices. I was once with two individuals on separate occasions, and with the first, and I'm going to call these guys Larry and Mo for the purpose of this presentation. So I'm standing there with Larry, and I notice one of his former employees approaching across the side of the mall. And I see that their former employee catches a glimpse of Larry, and what he immediately does is he lowers his head, he starts to pretend to talk on his cell phone, and he quickly walks in the opposite direction. Mo, on the other hand, when I was with him and his former employee saw him, made a beeline for him, gave him a big hug, asked him how he was doing, and asked him how his family was doing and how much he had missed them. And I share that with you simply because you can see the difference between these two. Both of them were very bright, hard-driven managers. The difference was Mo was nice and Larry wasn't. So I tell you one thing, you'll get a long way in life if you just be nice to each other and if you be nice to those you come in contact with. I learned in my first role as a full-time employee at the Polynesian Cultural Center as account executive is people, even if they want your product, they are not going to buy it from you if they don't like you. They will find someone else to buy it from. You need to remember that you might be the brightest individual around, you might be the most eloquent, but if people don't identify you as being sincere and caring about them, then you won't do very well in business. I'm moving on to my mission, and didn't I have a lot of hair back then. But I share this with you, formative years, because everyone says they love their mission. Well, I did love my mission, but I will tell you it was a grind. It was a real grind. I did not like tracting. I hated tracting. Knocking on doors, getting doors slammed in my face, I did not like. But I persevered. And it was interesting because you may not believe this, but prior to my mission, you couldn't get a word out of me. I was absolutely like the wall. You know, I just blended in with the wall. I was so shy that when it came time to give my missionary farewell talk, guess who didn't go to Sacrament that day? Me. And they said, well, where were you today? I said, you told me I was going to speak. Forget it. You know, so I didn't go. There was a course we used to have to stay called Speech 101, and I had a Mrs. Takaki as my teacher. And she said, to get your final grade, you will have to give a 3-minute presentation in front of the class, and I about died right there. And she said, it's not a problem, it's only 3 minutes. Well, I was horrified, and I was literally sweating bullets, standing up there, humming and hawing for 3 minutes. It was just excruciating. So I want to tell you that my mission kind of cured me of that, primarily because I realized that this is my lot. This is what I'm stuck with. And I ought to learn to deal with it, learn to cope with it, learn to persevere, or this is going to be the longest 2 years of my life. So that's what I did. Now, something that I share with you at this point is the importance of being persistent. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, that which we persist in doing becomes easier to do. Not that the nature of the thing has changed, but that our power to do has increased. I was recently released as a campus stake president, and I remember listening to a senior missionary share this story about her ability to help this young person. And the young person basically came up and said, listen, here I am at Brigham Young University, Hawaii. English is my second language. I think this guy likes me. I'm not too sure. He's very frustrating. I'm struggling with my class. I have to work. And I'm 4,000 miles away from the people who love me. And this was her point to him. So the senior missionary said, put your head on my shoulder, dear. So she did that, and she said, you know, you're just going to have to suck it up and deal with this. And then she said, it's going to get easier. And she said, really? The classes are going to get easier? And she said, oh no, you're doing course 100 now. They're going to get much harder. But your ability, if you persevere with them, your ability to cope with them will increase such that they will seem to be easier for you. And so that was important. So I'd like you to remember that, because if there's one thing, you know, you might even call it stubbornness, but being persistent goes a long way. Now, let me move on to becoming president and CEO of the Polynesian Cultural Center. I'm going to share a story with you. This story was shared by a gentleman named Zig Ziglar. He is a well-known American author and speaker, and he shared the following story about two men who went to work for a railroad company. So let me read it for you. Several years ago, on an extremely hot day, a crew of men were working on the roadbed of the railroad when they were interrupted by a slow-moving train. The train ground to a stop, and a window in the last car, which incidentally was custom-made and air-conditioned, was raised. A booming, friendly voice called out, "Dave, is that you?" Dave Anderson, the crew chief, called back, "Sure is, Jim, and it's really good to see you." With that pleasant exchange, Dave Anderson was invited to join Jim Murphy, the president of the railroad, for a visit. For over an hour, the men exchanged pleasantries and then shook hands warmly as the train pulled away. Dave Anderson's crew immediately surrounded him and expressed astonishment that he knew Jim Murphy, the president of the railroad, and that he was his personal friend. Dave then explained that 23 years earlier, he and Jim Murphy had started work at the railroad on the same day. One of the men, half jokingly and half seriously, asked Dave why he was still working out in the hot sun and Jim Murphy had gotten to be president. Rather wistfully, Dave explained, because 23 years ago, I came to work for the railroad for $1.75 an hour. Jim Murphy came to work for the railroad. This this is basically my summed up leadership talk to you. I actually didn't start out as a Jim Murphy at the Polynesian Cultural Center. I was actually the Dave. I came to work for a wage. I expected that in 2 years, maybe 5 at the max, I would move on and I'd do something else. And I did. I actually left the Polynesian Cultural Center after 4 or 5 years of employment. And I went and worked for another company. And then after that, I started my own business. And the money was great, far more than I was making at the Polynesian Cultural Center. And I was able to set my work hours. But the interesting thing was I had lost my reason for getting up energized in the morning. It seemed to me at that point that making money and having time to do whatever I wanted to do wasn't really as exciting as I had expected it to be. And so several years later, I actually returned to the Polynesian Cultural Center. And that sense of purpose returned. And it was at that point that I actually made this transition from Dave to Jim Murphy. It wasn't until that time that I actually came to really work for the Polynesian Cultural Center. And that's an important distinction. And I would just encourage you, if you are to go into business for yourself, if you're going to work for somebody or so forth, and you expect to get ahead, don't just go there working for a salary or a wage, because it's only going to get you as far as that check every 2 weeks you get it. Be looking to work for a company that you can be passionate about, that you're excited to go to work every day for. That's made all the difference in my case. So let me just give you some thoughts on what I've learned over the years. My first thought for you is mission statements are really good. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with mission statements, but let me just give you some examples of what they've done for me. They help keep you focused on what matters most. The interesting thing, I think some of you may be familiar, Elder Dallin H. Oakes gave a talk way back, I think it was in 2007, called Good, Better, Best. Your life is going to be filled with good and bad. Choosing between good and bad is easy. It's duck soup. Choosing between good, better, or best is very difficult, because it means you have to give up the good. And that's very challenging. A mission statement has helped me to appreciate that there are some elements, some opportunities that fit the mission statement better than others. In fact, we call that running a good fit test, which is the second thing that a mission statement allows you to do. Whatever you're thinking, does it fit with your mission? Do you really have the time and the energy to give to this endeavor if it's not really a good fit with your mission? Do you need to change your mission? These are elements that you ought to think through very carefully, but I'd recommend that if you haven't, create a mission statement for yourself. What do you want to become? Who are you really? What really means a lot for you? What gets you up in the morning when you're tired, feeling lethargic and so forth, and gets you out the door? And make sure whatever you do is a good fit. Finally, I will say this, in my responsibilities in leadership, it makes it a lot easier to say no. Everyone brings ideas about, let's make the Polynesian Cultural Center the Pacific Cultural Center. Let's add a lot of theme park rides to the Polynesian Cultural Center. Well, we have a mission statement that was reviewed and vetted and based on dedicatory prayers, prophetic statements, and so forth. And so we are fortunate to have a rock-solid mission. And so it's easy enough for me in my capacity and responsibilities to look at something and say, you know, this doesn't fit exactly with our mission statement. And it becomes easier to say no. Stephen R. Covey, in his book 7 Habits, mentioned this in this way. He said, it's easier to say no when you have a very large yes burning inside you, a yes for something else. Don't always say yes. You can't do everything. You can't be everything to everyone. You'll find that if you spread yourself too thin, you'll become that very person who's good at a lot of things, great at nothing. You do need to focus in You need to focus on what can make you great. Setting expectations really makes a difference. Clearly defining expectations is critical in letting people govern themselves and achieve the desired results. Now, I don't know if you're like me when I was at school, but there were a lot of times I would leave a classroom and I wasn't exactly sure what the instructor had asked me to do. So I'd look around and go, man, I don't get it. I'm not sure on what the assignment was. So I'd turn to one of my classmates and say, what were we supposed to do? And they'll go, yeah, I'm not sure either. I go, oh, okay. Well, I didn't want to go and ask the instructor, so I just winged it, okay? I turned it in, hoping that I really knew what the instructor was expecting of me, and then I'd get the grade back, and the grade would testify to me that I absolutely had no clue what the instructor had really expected of me. So please, in either following directions or giving directions, it's so critical to be very clear on what your expectations are. What is expected of me? What is expected of you? Without that, you really will never feel empowered, and you will always require a manager overlooking your shoulder, because he's never going to be sure that he can trust you. Now, the other item that I've learned, and I would put this down as being probably priority number one in my responsibility as CEO and president at the Polynesian Cultural Center. First who, then what? We expected that good to great leaders would begin by setting a new vision and strategy. We found instead that they first got the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats, and then they figured out where to drive it. This is from Jim Collins and from his book called Good to Great. Excellent read, if I could recommend a book. And this has been critical. Life is so much easier when you're dealing with people who you feel can do the job that needs to be done. Life becomes excruciatingly difficult when you work with people who you really don't have faith in, you don't have trust, can get the job done. It becomes difficult. You become a micromanager. That individual has no authority whatsoever. I've worked at PCC and I've seen examples where a certain employee who had no rank, no title, would make a recommendation. And the president at that time would go, how much? Who said that? Such and such said that. Oh, okay then, that's good. In the same meeting, I've seen a vice president recommend something and the president go, well, we're going to have to look at that some more. I need to understand what you're talking about. I need to see some financial analysis, etc., etc. It wasn't all about title. It wasn't about job. It was about a track record that that employee had established for getting things done and getting them done right, versus a vice president who apparently didn't always get things right and so had to be checked on. Getting the right people on your bus, sitting in the right seat, whatever your company is probably going to be the most critical thing that you do. Okay, so I mentioned trust. I'd like to talk a little bit about trust now, because it's been probably one of the biggest factors and attributes that I've looked for in people. First of all, Stephen Covey, in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, gave this definition to trust. He said, trust equals competency plus character. Now, you do a Google dictionary search and it says competency is the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. And character is the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. So these things play a huge role in what your employees will think about you. Now, I'm going to share something with you. Okay? This is a rugby game. I'm going to share an example, a portion of it, for two reasons. One, I really enjoy rugby. And the second thing is that there's a principle of trust in here that I hope that you might see and I'm going to discuss with you after. So let me go ahead, and before we start this, let me just qualify something. Rugby games go for 80 minutes. You'll see that the time on the clock here is 78.58. There is a minute left in this game. Ireland is leading 22-17 over New Zealand. Heaven forbid. Okay? And to win this game, New Zealand's going to have to do that in 1 minute. New Zealand is going to have to get the ball back. And then not only that, they're going to have to score. But in doing this, there's some rules that you have to follow, like in any game. In rugby, you're not allowed to drop the ball forward. And if you step out of bounds, the game's over. If you make a mistake and the ref penalizes you, the game's over. If you drop the ball forward, the game is over. It's over. And you lose this test, this critical test. And now here's the other thing. These guys have been running around crazy for nearly 80 minutes. They're exhausted. They're wasted. And now it comes down to the final minute. So let's hope this works. Okay. How long were they passing that ball around? 2 minutes. If they drop the ball, the game's over. They've finished. Ireland has won the game. My question to you now, given the situation, is whenever you go and apply for a job, whenever you want to start a partnership in a business, even when you go and get a bank loan, it's as if you're asking somebody to pass you the ball. And imagine if you're like this game here, where you look up and you know the game's on the line and you go to look who you're passing the ball to and you see somebody and you go, I'm not going to pass him the ball. What made these guys comfortable to pass the ball to each other the way they did? Keep in mind, Ireland was trying to knock the ball out of their hands. They were trying to stop him. It's not like we're just sitting here in a little circle passing the ball around to each other. They're exhausted. They're lying on the field. They're wiped out. The other team is trying to knock it out, and yet they're consistently passing it from one person to another. Anyone? Tell me why would you pass the ball? What made these guys willing to pass the ball around in a situation like that? Anyone?
It's having more confidence in the team rather than confidence in yourself.
Excellent. So they have a tremendous team confidence. But what knowledge did they have of each other? Think about trust again. Competence plus character. What must have they known about each other in the team? Competence-wise.
That they can catch the ball.
They can catch a ball. They're really good at catching the ball. Imagine if I had watched you at practice and you kept dropping the ball. And then we get in the game and I see you lining up today. I go, no, not you. I'll go the other way. You know? That's what it's like in the job market. It really is. You're basically asking an employer or a partner or even a bank loan officer to say, hey, pass me the ball. I can run with it. I can catch it and I can run with it. So let me just share these thoughts with you. First of all, as a potential partner or employer, would I pass you the ball? First thing, and you know, and I don't mean, but you know, sometimes you hear, okay, you go and see the bishop. What's the bishop going to tell you if you're struggling? He's going to say, read your scriptures, say your prayers, have family home evening, you know. And you think, yeah, okay, well, this is just what he's saying now, but in a different text. First thing is good grades. Basically what good grades told me, and I've hired a lot of people over the years, good grades tells me a couple of things, is A, you're intelligent, or B, you're a hard worker, or C, which is the best, is you're a bit of both. Secondly, for example, have you done internships? Do you have any experience? I want to see your ability to learn. I don't remember anything about my days of going to college here at BYU Hawaii. It was so long ago. But I do remember that I learned the processes of learning. I learned how to learn here at BYU Hawaii. Prior to that, I had a lack of discipline, I had no process to follow, and consequently, I didn't get very good grades. I came back from my mission, I knuckled down, and I was able to do much better because I had learnt this valuable lesson that there's a process to learning. So that's what I get out of reading someone who's done internships is also work experience. Skill sets learned, promotions that you've received and so forth, performance evaluations, your ability, your strengths, your weaknesses, your attitude, your reliability. I watch a lot of kids over at BYU Hawaii arrive late to work. And then when they get their performance evaluation, on it has number of absences, a lot of tardies, and so forth. At some point, what do you want to put in front of a potential employer or partner? That you are late all the time? That your middle name is tardy? That you're not reliable? You know? Or am I going to pass you the ball? No. Finally, service. What kind of person are you really? When you don't have to do it, when your grades are not dependent on it, when it's not part of your work, and you do something for other people, it helps me understand what kind of person you really are when no one's watching. So I wanted to express this upon you because in my career, I've actually never applied for a full-time position at the Polynesian Cultural Center. I never filled out an application form saying, I'd like to apply for that job. I was invited to interview for jobs or just to take a job, and I don't say that with any boasting. I say it from the point that I had done something that had instilled enough trust in my manager or supervisor that they were interested in me taking the other job. My current responsibility came after an interview with the First Presidency. And so out of 3 candidates, I was given the assignment, and the explanation given was that we trust you to fulfill the mission of the Polynesian Cultural Center. And that was it. It was that term again. So I wanted to emphasize it for that simple reason. And the last thing I'd like to do is just put a shout out for being grateful. Learn to be thankful for what you already have while you pursue all that you want. The happiest, most content people I know are not defined by career, job, or title, but by a deep sense of gratitude for the blessings in their lives. Now, I use the term blessing for a specific reason, because to me it expresses gratitude for people or things that I have in my life that are not directly due to my own efforts. You know, I can't proudly look up and pound my chest and say, I deserve this, or I earn this, as so many people do. Rather, I consider them to be gifts. So I hope that you will always be grateful for the blessings or gifts that you have in your life. I think that one thing I've learned from people who have gone on from this place is they will always come back and that they will say, this here at BYU Hawaii, at the Polynesian Cultural Center in the community of Laie, literally in the shadow of a temple, the house of God, was one of the best times of my life. The clock's ticking on all of you. Your time here is fast running out on you. My recommendation to you is do your best to get the most out of this experience, to enjoy it the most, to grow the most from it. You will not regret it. You will really consider it a blessing and a gift later on in your life. Thank you very much. Aloha. So I put this slide in here to remind me that I think I have 5 minutes. Any questions? No, we're all good. Thank you. Oh, except for the instructors. I don't know. Students, you know. Sister Henneman.
Okay, so what do you wish the BYU Hawaii students would do better while they work at BCC?
Good question. What do I wish you would do better at the Polynesian Cultural Center? Every opportunity you're given, I mean, you could be a dishwasher, or you could be a star performer in the shows or what have you. Every experience can be valuable to you. What you learn from it is really entirely up to you. But I will tell you that in life there are always good models to exemplify, and there are others to not exemplify. You can always learn something from somebody. So keep your end in mind. Whatever you're doing now, remember that this can reflect well on you later on when you go looking for your job, when you go looking for a partner for the business that you want to form. They're going to be looking to your past to see, what have you done? What is your experience? Were you a good employee at the Polynesian Cultural Center? Did you get promotions again and again? Did you start as a dishwasher but end up as a lead supervisor over 45 students, serving over 1,000 meals a day in less than 2 hours? Did you do those kind of things? Or did you just plug along from one job to another thinking that I'm just here to earn a wage, nothing more, nothing less? Hope that's helpful. Anything else?
Well, I actually have a thought, but I know you probably will say no. But I envision that there will be an air conditioning like walkway for the students to come from the college to the BCC gate. Because I see all these students walking in the hot air, and I thought, wouldn't that be nice to have just like a conveyor belt that's air conditioned so they could go there with the beautiful flowers and makeup?
Yeah. You know,
Is that a big no or a little yes?
well, you know, on a great day when the trade winds are blowing, it's kind of air conditioned.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's going across there, and you know, if you are hot, you can always go with this kind of haircut. It does help. Thank you, though. I will add this: is I'm grateful to have our human resource team here, and we are trying to invest. One of our core objectives going forward is to help in the development of students here at BYU Hawaii. And does it sound benevolent of us to make? It's not. It's the reason why PCC was created. First and foremost, the Polynesian Cultural Center was created to benefit the students of Brigham Young University, Hawaii, through providing employment opportunities so that you can contribute to the cost of your education. And secondly, and this is the thing President Eyring really stressed to me, is you have got to help these students develop valuable skill sets so when they return home, they will be able to get good jobs. And because they have good jobs, they'll be able to take care of their families, they'll be able to serve faithfully in church, and they'll be able to serve in their communities. They won't be able to do that if they're not gainfully employed. He said, Brother Grace, one of the most important things that Polynesian Cultural Center can do is to provide these students with these skill sets so that they can be valuable and highly employable. So there you go.
One more, this is actually a compliment to PCC. At the same time as President Hinckley sent his people to BYU Management Society leadership and told us we need you to start doing, developing leaders around the world. And so we have the new mission statement, and we have the beliefs, value beliefs. When I came here 11 years ago, I noticed that the cards were at BYU Hawaii, and they were at PCC. For 11 years, I have gone to PCC, and every employee that I have met can tie what they are doing to those value beliefs. That is unheard of. What did you do to push the mission statement and those value beliefs and sustain that for such a long time?
Thank you. We reinforce it in multiple ways. First of all, we have the HR team here. They do a wonderful orientation program when you're hired. And then after that, every employee is encouraged to attend the daily devotionals. And in the devotionals, we have a set where you have a spiritual thought and you have training from the handbook. Training from the handbook includes going over mission statements and cultural beliefs. And they review that on a daily. In fact, I carry my handbook right here. This is the handbook, and every employee at the Polynesian Cultural Center gets this. We do that so that there's a couple of things. I talked about expectations. We're trying to help everybody understand that there are some clear expectations for their employment at the Polynesian Cultural Center. The second thing that comes with expectation is accountability. We then are able to hold them accountable to fulfill what's expected of them. Am I right? Yeah. Thank you very much. Aloha. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question back here. Everyone doesn't like you asking this question, you know. No, I'm kidding.
Sorry. I was just going to ask, you were talking about people hiring you and have to apply for a full-time job at any point. What qualities do you now look for other people? What qualities they have to just hire them?
Yeah, good question. I really do look to try and develop trust with them. I'm looking for their competency. For competency, I look, what have you done? Your experience. I'm really interested in what you've done. I'm not interested in what you say. I look at the letters of references. I say, that's okay, but I want to know what you did. What experiences have you had? That's critical for me. Then the other thing I'm looking for is I'm looking to try and understand what kind of person you are. You know, I can have a very competent person who, quite frankly, could be a jerk. That's not going to work. I could have the most wonderful, nice, lovable person, but they're incompetent. That's not going to work either. So I'm looking for this combination of someone who has a good track, and it doesn't have to be a track record in exactly what I'm hiring them for. It has to be a history or track record of success in overcoming challenges. I love it when I see a student who has overcome something. I'll give you a simple example at PCC. One day, flowers started showing up in the women's restroom. Beautiful bouquets of flowers sitting there. What happened is those bathrooms didn't need nearly as much cleaning as they used to because people started cleaning up after themselves because they just saw these beautiful flowers in a bathroom. And so I said, who did that? And they said, well, Toiva did that. Oh, note down Toiva. I've got that in my memory. If she ever comes to apply for a job that's a different one from what she has, I'll be thinking about this experience where she broke the paradigm and exceeded expectations. I remember those things. Okay? Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Aloha.